It's a very good evening and welcome to Reparations Now, a production of the Guyana Reparations Committee. We have in studio with us this evening the chairman of the Guyana Reparations Committee, Brother Eric Phillips. We have member of the Guyana Reparations Committee, Brother Elton McCrae. And we have the one rose between these thorns, Sister Penda Guyana. Welcome to Reparations Now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, brother.
Okay, this is the first edition of the Guyana Reparations Now television program. And so it is important for us to bring the audience up to date with what is reparations. And so I throw the question out to whichever one or two or three of you would like to answer. Speak to the Guyanese audience about reparations. What is reparations?
Well, let me start. Since I was appointed chair of the Guyana Reparations Committee, and I'm on the CARICOM Reparations Commission, which is comprised of 13 nations in the Caribbean, all seeking reparations under the CARICOM umbrella. Reparations has many different meanings. For us, it means that harms of the past are being repaired. Those harms are many. Our land taken away from us, our names, our language, our culture, because of enslavement. And notice I didn't say slavery, of enslavement. And so over the last 400 years, for example, Africans have been enslaved and harmed. They're one of the few people in the world that have gone through the types of enslavement that are in history. As a matter of fact, in 2001 at the Durban Conference, slavery was called the greatest crime against humanity. And so when we were captured through wars and some of our own people selling us in Africa and brought here, we were dehumanized. And so reparations is about both the physical loss, land, name, culture, etc., but it's also about healing the great psychological damage. We're still whitening ourselves because we don't like being black, even though black people or African people were the first people on this earth, as shown by Lucy's skeleton, which is 3.2 million years of age. We don't buy from each other. We don't pool our resources together to, like other groups, to get into economic ventures. So there's this huge psychological damage where Africans are afraid of being Africans. And of course, enslavement has resulted in a global hierarchy of race and racism. So racism, which was concocted by the church, the private sector, the governments of Europe to justify their enslavement, has now become a political culture, a political system. And you look in some religions where the darker you are, the lower you are in that religion. So all of these things we have to heal, to repair. We have to become proud of our heritage. We have to recognize that Africa is a mother of civilization. The first people were there, the first doctors, lawyers, teachers. Everyone who's in this world came from Africans. So
Well, you did mention, Brother Eric, that there are psychological effects of enslavement. Are there any other effects like health, education?
Yeah, one of the studies done by a professor in Trinidad shows that because of what we eat, we are deficient in a lot of things. We have the highest rate of hypertension in the world. We have the highest rate of diabetes in the world. And this is through diet, the salt and all those things, the starvation. So it is a comprehensive denial of rights, of esteem, of health, of everything, even our systems. George G.M. James, one of the greatest Guyanese, wrote the book Stolen Legacy. So even the great things we've done, others have stolen because Africans aren't supposed to do that. So to wind it up, reparations is a process of healing. It also is international law. The Jews received reparations. The indigenous people of South America and the states receive reparations. People are receiving reparations all the time. The Amerindians in Guyana receive reparations, 13.8% of Guyana. And yet, Africans who suffer the most and who died the most, because in 1650, there were 100 million Africans, 100 million Europeans. By 1850, Europeans had grown to 265 million, Africa decreased to 95. So even though there is a loss of 170 million people overall because of this process, we have not received any reparations.
And how would you classify the 47 million pounds paid to the planters? How would you
Right. Well,
classify that?
we were property. And so at emancipation, 20 million pounds were given to the British owners because they were losing property. And most people don't realize that the freed African in Guyana was worth 51 pounds, whereas the freed African in most other Caribbean islands was worth 17 pounds. And then apart from the 20 million pounds, which is today worth about $20 billion, there was apprenticeship, which was another 27 million given to given to the
Planters.
the planters. And so the total process was 47 million, even though they camouflaged it as apprenticeship.
What is the approximate current value of that 47 million?
About
pounds?
$50 billion US.
So on our backs, the Europeans got $50 billion.
They got that, and they also developed, because it was sugar and cotton and tobacco that developed Europe. That's how they got an industrial age. So we developed Europe. We died for Europe and Guyana, building Guyana, and we've gotten nothing.
I would like to ask Sister Pender a question. As far as you know, is this reparations movement a local Guyanese movement, or is it something Caribbean-wide?
It is Caribbean, because we are a part of the CARICOM Reparations Commission. There are 13 Caribbean countries, of which we are one, that's asking for reparations. But, Brother Jonathan, it is even more than that, because in November I was in the United Kingdom, and I attended a conference for the International Year of People of, a decade of People of African descent, and at that conference in England, they were talking about reparations. So reparations for African people is throughout the diaspora. It is not just the Caribbean and Guyana, but they're talking about it in England, in Holland. I know this, I think it is Switzerland is on board.
Brazil,
and
Colombia.
Brazil and all these places. So it's really spreading.
Did you mention the United States of America?
Yes, because there is a commission
There's one there too.
that was
I'm sorry.
established. There is a reparations commission that was established in the United States, and the CARICOM Reparations Commission joined them when they were launched.
And
2 years
the
ago.
HR 40.
HR 40 has been on
is
the books for
retabled
20
in
years
Congress
plus.
once again.
Yeah.
Well, we've talked about the process as it has unfolded in the Caribbean and in Guyana. Let's talk a little bit about the types of reparations: soft reparations, hard reparations, and self-reparations.
Okay.
Can we let the public know about these various types of reparations? Brother Elton, if you would care to.
Okay. Now, reparations. The instant most people hear about reparations, they're thinking money. No, money is not all, does not include all the types of reparations or the reasons why reparations must be considered. As Brother Eric mentioned earlier, there has been psychological damage. We must repair that damage. There has been loss in culture, of our culture. People have lost their cultural identity. There must be mechanisms in place to relink back to Africa.
Just let me make a little interjection here. When you talk about loss of cultural identity, what are you talking about?
Okay. First and foremost, you called me Elton.
Yes. That's what I know you as.
Now, if there was not that delinking from Africa, the being that I am now would not have been Elton. I'm pretty sure of that. You yourself would not have been Jonathan, I'm pretty sure of that.
Well, I would have had an Aka name.
Most likely.
Yes.
So that identity I'm talking about, my understanding of things African is somewhere between reality and what was fed to me along the way.
What about appreciation of things African?
You know, appreciation. Generally, us people in the Caribbean, Africans in the Caribbean, do not quite appreciate things African. For instance, should I hold a drum and take it alongside a church and beat, somebody will say, hey, he's working over here on us. You know, we have to understand that the history of our people has been so that there was a time drumming was illegal within the landmass of what is now Guyana. We could not have used our drums.
Just a quick interjection. Africa has 3,000 ethnic groups and 2,000 languages. How many Guyanese know that? That's the delinking. We know English and Creolese, which is an outcome of that. But you know, just to add to Elton, the culture that we've lost is rich and deep.
So we, you know, we have been made to forget Africa, because it was not only illegal, but it was instilled in our minds that things African are bad. You should not try to do it. You know, no.
Brother Elton, you made a very interesting point just now when you said we have been made to forget Africa. What are the tangible, real benefits of remembering Africa? Is it a case that other peoples who have migrated throughout the world have retained a connection with their homeland to their benefit economically, culturally, socially?
Yes.
Sister Penda? Sister Penda?
Yes.
Anybody?
Yes, I say so. I mean, adding to what Brother Elton said when you talk about the culture, look at my dress. When I walk out and I'm like this, we heard the comments, it's not emancipation yet, because we do not appreciate what is ours. They feel that the only time we can wear what brother is wearing or what I'm wearing is if it's emancipation. They do not understand that this is our normal clothing. We have lost that. And yes, I feel that we have lost touch of that cultural feeling, that link, that is so important, because when you keep in touch with your culture, you are able to reach back, you're able to, if even you're living in another country, let me explain. Take the people in the United States of America, the people who are called quote-unquote Jewish people, right? The European Jewish people. I call them Jewish people because regardless of what they say, Jew is not a race, it's a religion. But they have taken that upon themselves as a race. It is a religion. So you have the European Jewish people. They, every Saturday, they're in the synagogue teaching their children the significance of their culture, their history, and that they must never forget what happened to them in the gas chamber. So much so that they are focusing. There is a book, Brother Eric, I've forgotten the name, where they show you that wherever they are, they have to promote the culture, the religion, and everything. It's written. It's like a mandate that they go by because they know how important it is to keep in touch with culture.
But it's deeper than that. Let me just give you an example.
When you lose the culture,
We are told we're not entrepreneurs. We're told we're not scientists. most of our young people would never dream that it was an African who was central in creating the internet. Philip Imiwali,
Nigeria.
a Nigerian. He's been called the father of the internet. He's been called the Black Einstein. He was a young man when he did, I think it was 3.2 billion calculations covering 59,000 processors with 3.2 million equations, all at the same time. He created the internet, or enabled the internet to be what it is today. But why do we believe that Africans aren't good at math? We started math 35,000 years ago in Swaziland, the Lebombo bones. We were writing on the bones of a baboon. We were counting. And yet today, people don't believe we're scientists. We created the pyramids. I mean, the pyramids cannot be rebuilt today. Pythagoras is supposed to be the one who created the pi, in the triangle. The pyramid has pi, and the pyramid was there 2,000 years before him. The Temple of Cheops is in the center of the landmass of the earth. The Dogon tribe knew that there was Sirius A, Sirius B, when no one would believe them. And it took over 200 years when the first telescope was built for them to find Sirius B. So you go on and on. Imhotep, the father of medicine.
That I was going to ask about the father of medicine.
You go through all of what has been taken from us. Timbuktu has 700,000 manuscripts on every possible subject. But it's still there because some are still there. So we have had our heritage, our culture, our mathematics, our science, our business, our medicine stolen from us and taken away from us, and we've been so brainwashed that we're slaves and not enslaved, that our young people today are disconnected from that. They don't know this, so they don't want to be African, because to be African is to be ignorant and not to be scientific. Who did the first open heart surgeon? They say it's Christian Bernard, but it was a black South African. I mean, we can go on and on and on, and this is what has happened to us.
And so that essentially what we're saying is that the loss of our culture may have contributed to the loss of our competitiveness, because we do not remember that we created these scientific and other exploits.
The loss of our culture is the loss of self, loss of identity, loss of science, loss of everything. Because we don't, and yet, I mean, today you see it. You have two grandparents who never went to school, but their children are doctors and lawyers. It's in the DNA. We were the first scientists, doctors, lawyers. It's in our DNA. But the school system keeps telling us that we're not good enough. Other cultures tell us that we're not good enough. We're at the bottom of the case system, So the media keeps telling us we're not good, and to be African is to be bad. And yet, they're all descendants of us because we were the first people.
Give us a definition of hard reparations, and after this definition, we will go to an informational break.
Hard reparations in Guyana has three components.
Yes.
One is land.
Yes.
Our indigenous brothers, 6 of the 9 tribes are here before us, all 9 have received a total of 13.8% of Guyana. For reparations for building Guyana, and for taking 18% of Guyana, 15,000 square miles is what we cleared, we should be given land as reparatory justice, because land is wealth.
Let's emphasize on this a little bit. When you say cleared,
Guyana was
18%.
swamp. 15,000 square miles.
We have humanized the coastal land of Guyana.
Yeah, 100 million tons of earth we moved with our hands. 472,000 Africans died to build Guyana. People forget that. We try to link slavery and say it's another form, indentureship is another form of slavery. Well, 472,000 Africans died. How many died in indentureship? So we died to build Guyana. We died to clear 15,000 square miles, or 18% of Guyana. We were the ones who diversified Guyana's economy. After emancipation, we went into gold, we went into other products. So when you look at it, we're the ones who have built Guyana. We died for Guyana. We were enslaved 200 years of free labor. And yet, folks don't want to give us what we are justifiably deserve. If 3 indigenous groups could come to Guyana 100 to 200 years after we were here building Guyana, right? The YYs, there are 300 of them. They came here in the 1800s. The Makusis and the Wapishanas came here 100 years after we did. They're all been given land. They didn't die for Guyana. There was no indigenous genocide, right? They weren't raped and brutalized and branded and deculturized. They didn't live 3 years in slavery. I mean,
So that what you're saying is that there are groups of people who exist in this land who have been given reparations, and that there is, apart from that, the just cause for reparations. But Brother Eric, you...
but it's international. The Jews were given
international.
reparations.
Yes.
The Japanese were given reparations. The South Korean women were given reparations. The indigenous people in America
New
were given
Zealand.
reparations. New Zealand's, the Maoris, Aborigines in Australia. Even in France, Jews were given reparations because the trains used to take them to Auschwitz, that company, CND, had to pay reparations. So you see reparations all over the world for less crimes than what happened to us, and yet people don't want to give us any credit for all the dying and building that we did.
Eric, I think this discussion is getting exciting. Just let me...
something that
The other thing that I want you to add when you finished answering is tell us about reparations, Haiti.
Yes.
Okay. Now, when we were talking of clearing the lands of Guyana, the coastland, I think we need to understand the people who came to Guyana, the Africans who were brought to Guyana, among them they were engineers, they were agronomists. Why I'm saying this? If we look at sugar, sugar came out of India, through Africa to Europe. So when after they recognized that the people they found in this part of the world, the Amerindians, could not have understand the culture of sugar, they went to find the people who they knew understood sugar.
And tobacco and cotton.
Tobacco and cotton, because cotton also came from the Sudan, Ethiopian region. So they knew that our people knew it. So they brought people who understood these cultures. So our people actually, and as for the clearing of the lands, we must also remember, we talk of the Dutch engineers, but if you go back in history, you'll find that the people who taught the Dutch land reclamation came out of that western coast of Africa, Senegal, Gambia, and those, because they were fighting the seas for thousands.
Well, the Moors who ruled Europe or Spain for 800 years built university, taught them how to bathe, built everything. So it's not anything new.
So our people actually taught the Dutch that brand of hydraulic engineering. So when we came, it was a child's play to really handle that situation.
And Sister Penda, would you
Because
care to speak
until the Africans came, they were settling along the rivers, if you remember.
Yes.
They all came and were going up the rivers, but when the Africans came in numbers, they started to tame the coast.
Would you care to speak about reparations, Haiti?
Haiti?
The Haitian reparations scheme. Okay. Reparations that was extracted from Haiti by France.
Oh my gosh, that is so devastating. First of all, Haiti is a country that we should all look up to so much, and we don't, because I don't think we understood the significance of what happened. It is the country that beat the British
And the French.
the French,
The Americans.
and the Americans,
Spanish.
and everybody. And I mean, they just
For
couldn't-
freedom, for independence.
For the independence, exactly. And so, because of this, they have never forgiven Haiti.
Like they did to Cuba.
Exactly. So, but I mean, what was so bad is that Haiti was made to pay. It is the first time. Normally, you
It's the
pay.
only country in the world,
You
in the history
pay
of the world,
the-
that won a war that paid
That pays.
because they won the war.
You see, so you ask them to pay for beating them.
150 million francs.
We had to pay them because we won the war. We said, okay, we are independent. So what has happened is that Haiti has been forced to pay reparations for winning their freedom, quote unquote.
And that destroyed Haiti because...
Exactly, because they had this stranglehold on them that they could never develop because the monies that were supposed to go back into their infrastructure and for bringing them to where they should be as a nation was being funneled all the time into France.
It's still going on right now in West Africa, where 22 countries are still paying France.
The French, they internationalize that thing. Okay, we colonize you, so you pay us for being our colonies.
But I would like us to spend probably a minute more talking about the mechanism by which the wealth of Haiti was extracted and its possible contribution to the impoverishment which is in Haiti. There is the common thesis that Haiti is poor because the black people there don't understand that kind of story. Let us talk about that reparations.
It's the same racism I'm talking about. We can't do math because we're black. We can't do science because we're black. The biggest myth in Guyana is that we can't do business because we're black. Yet we were the greatest entrepreneurs here in the village movement. And if you look at auto wealth, this wealth in Guyana, I'm still trying to name 10 successful businessmen who weren't successful because of state assets, whether it's mining assets, land assets, things given to them. But we created wealth. So Haiti was driven into poverty because it had to pay for its freedom, for winning its freedom. So they were put in debt. And as you look at Guyana and the Caribbean and many countries today, the debt trap is still there, where you have to, you get loans. They force you into an economy where you have to borrow, and then when you borrow, you're trapped for life because you have to keep paying them back these ominous debts that you can't repay. Guyana went through that. We had bauxite. We could have sold it. We nationalized it. What did they do? They did the same thing they did to Cuba. They made sure that our bauxite couldn't be sold. So it's the same techniques throughout history that was used to impoverish Haiti.
But let's take it even a step further in Haiti, because you find that after every disaster that they've had, be it the earthquake or the tsunami or whatever that came through, you find that these people come into the country and they're supposed to be helping. But what happens is that every time they are finished setting up, they have impoverished Haiti even more, because if you look at the footage that is coming out, the areas that they have removed them from and told them, well, we're going to give you employment, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, you find that these people are still living in...
It's the same thing, though, because even camps, when we were emancipated,
and they're not...
The British got paid, but they still own all the lands. And so for another 200 years, we were colonized until independence in 1966. So it's the same process. Even though we might be independent, economically, financially, because of global financial systems, we're still colonized. Right?
I think this is a very good time for us to bring in His Excellency, Brigadier David Granger, speaking about the reasons of our impoverishment.
You're cutting us while we're talking about the village.
Well, it's very exciting. Let's go to Brigadier Granger, please.
There's a reason why we're underdeveloped. It's not because we're stupid. It's because the system which was imposed on us prevents us from ever competing on a level playing field with the people who created that system. They didn't create a system, they made the people. My brothers and sisters, I'm not an attorney at law, but it is my view that the first basis for claims for reparative justice rests on the fact that crimes against humanity are punishable under international law. They do not enjoy protection of any statute of limitations. Article 6 of the Charter of the International Military Tribunal, which was used 71 years ago when the Nazis were being tried in Germany at the end of the Second World War. 71 years ago, the Europeans implemented that law stating that enslavement was a crime against humanity. So they used that law to punish the Nazis who would enslave Jews in the slave camps. Well, the shoe's on the other foot.
Yes, Sister Pender, you were, just before we heard Brigadier Granger.
Yes, I was following up on what Brother Eric was saying and Brother Elton, that here in Guyana, we had our villages, we had the village movement. And what happened is that that movement was destroyed by the very people who did not pay us for working for over 200 years on those forced labor camps, which they call plantations.
What they did
to us. Mm-hmm. There are a number of things. One, they flooded the lands. They flooded our lands, right? Two, the crops that we grew, we were not allowed to sell them in a free market.
Directly to them.
Directly. We had to go through their central body, which told us who we could sell to, at what price we could sell to. And if we didn't do that, then we kept it. The other thing...
That's how the Portuguese are so wealthy today.
Exactly.
We couldn't sell to the British. We had to sell to the Portuguese, who became middlemen, and then British would buy from them.
So that there is a direct connection between the current economic underperformance of Africans and a historical process of denial and exploitation.
It's very clear that we built Guyana. So to say we can't build anything is a lie. What happened is that everything we did was sabotaged. So when we left the plantations, right, they brought in people from other nations so that they can undercut our real value. Then when we were growing crops, we couldn't sell directly. We had to go through others. So when indentured servants came, they were paid, they were given lands. We were never given lands, we were never given paid, any money. So as you look at our history, and it's in our book, The 15 Reasons Why African Guyanese Are at the Bottom of the Ladders, as Chetty Jagan said. They're all government actions that go way back. It's not that we're not capable. It's that we have been prevented from executing our natural abilities.
And even if you look at it, they're doing it even today, because you find that, I mean, recently, up until recently it was done, because it was...
All the concessions were given, all the jobs,
exactly,
all the
and
contracts.
then what they would do is in irrigation, you have certain villages where we would plant, but then...
The DNI is bad.
Exactly, and then they wouldn't give us the necessary equipment that we need, so that you
it's
were
institutional,
left with
it's structural.
You were left with the crops on your hand. It was a deliberate thing to undermine.
You know.
And so what happened is that you didn't have the technology. They would not give you the loans.
That's why land reparations...
What Ben is actually trying to say is that if we look back in our not-so-distant history, we have rice. There has been schemes developed for rice. Show me the planting and cassava scheme, drainage irrigation scheme. There's none. There was a rice marketing board. Show me the board that existed for the sale of planting and cassava. I mean, if we go back in the 50s and 40s, we were exporting those crops to the small islands. But there was never a central system to assist our farmers.
But we must go back earlier.
No, but
We were the first people to grow rice,
That's
Yes.
and we
right.
were burnt out of rice. But Indo-Guyanese after indentureship were empowered. They were given lands for rice and given money to grow rice. But we were growing rice 100 years before there. As a matter of fact, in Barakara right now, you can find that rice.
Exactly.
So all the other groups have been empowered. They have been given reparations.
So
They've been
to say.
given payment. It's no reparations. It's not so to say. They were given reparations. They came here. They were repaired. They were kept whole, right? Their language, their culture, their names, everything was kept whole. So they were repaired, right? And then they were given economic. They were given land. They were given
Exactly.
money. They were given markets. They were given the freedom
Protected. They
to
were
practice their own
protected.
religion. One of the biggest issues with us is that we've been brainwashed because we lost our culture, we lost our spirituality.
I would like us to enter into a discussion, probably for the next 5 minutes, on the significance of land as a means towards repairing all of these ills that have befallen us.
Land is very important. If you have land, you have a
Well,
roof, you have a dwelling. If you have land, you can be self-sufficient. And if you have more land, then you're economically viable.
Is it true that the Africans, I want to interject this, is it true that the Africans walked away from the land because they did not want to remember?
No way.
Nonsense.
No, why then did
Let's deal with
no. Why then did we buy villages?
Exactly.
Beautiful. And how
That
many
is-
villages did we buy?
Over 100 and something villages.
Close to 200.
But yes,
Yeah.
but
So-
that is misinformation that is put out there simply to justify the fact that they have been taking our lands.
But let's develop the land. The land is more than just what we said. Land is wealth, globally, regionally, nationally. If you have land, as Sister Penna said, you can grow wealth, crops. You can have fishing. Land is land. You can have a housing scheme. You can become independent.
Exactly.
But you can also go to the bank and collateralize it. Even our villages now, Buxton, Victoria, we can't collateralize our land. That's why we need the Land Commission. Land is the essence of wealth. It is generational in that you can pass it on. And we have not been able to do that. So we were conned in the last 23 years, prior 23 years, by giving house lots. And if you look at the facts, whilst we were getting some little quarter acre and feeling happy, Jagdi was giving away hundreds of thousands of acres of land for commercial wealth. So again, how we look at land and how we were given land also limits us. We want commercial lands.
What is the significance of our foreparents purchasing those villages and maintaining the sea defenses, which leads to the integrity of land on the corridor, the East Coast corridor? What is the significance of our foreparents' contribution to the continuation and the wholesomeness of that tract of land?
If it were not for our foreparents buying those plantations, then the landscape of Guyana definitely would not have been what it is today, right? Because we would have had plantation type of a situation where all you have is canals and places where people are growing crops. We were able to, when we bought those plantations, we established townships. We established areas that for recreation, we established areas for agricultural production. In other words, we established communities. We established roads, dams, drains within those communities, right? So, as it was, without the input of our foreparents, we would have not been privy to what we now see. Let's take any one of our villages along the East Coast, Beavy or Buxton, where we have a well laid out system of irrigation canal, drainage system.
But that's the physical land. The broader land is really the communities, the schools on that land, the churches. So land is not just land. Land enables you to create communities, to create villages, to create nations. And indeed, Guyana is a community of villages, and that is an inheritance from the village movement. So as much as land gives you wealth, land gives you security. It gives you a sense of identity. So land is more than just land.
All right. Africans' current attitudes towards land, do we need to repair our attitudes and our values towards land?
Yes and no. I say yes because of economic hardship, we have looked at land differently. If you have land, like in our villages, and the banks are squeezing you, and your irrigation is poor, and the crops you grow can't reach the market because others are there preventing you, you would sell. So over the years, we have moved away from the land because of the hardships the society, the other races have put on us owning land. So we need to, but we do love land. Land has always been in our blood. And so I say yes and no because of what has happened to drive us away from the land. It's not that we wanted to be away from it.
Sister Penda, Brother Mark, what is your take?
If you look at the way our villages were set up, you would see how significant and how important land was to us. And I think let me explain. In the villages, you have your house plot, and then you have land at the back for each house plot.
You can farm.
Had a farm at the back. That enabled them to feed themselves as well as to grow crops for sale, right? To
Create wealth.
Create wealth. Now, if our young people are taught, we have to now, one, educate them as to the culture and the rich heritage that our foreparents left us. We have to let them understand the value of the land.
Would you call this a part of the self-reparation movement?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
most definitely. And what we also have to do is to let people of my age, your age, I'm older, but let us understand what we have to do in order to preserve our lands, to make sure that it is passed on the way it should be to our children. As Brother Eric was saying, we need the COI because a lot of the lands have not been properly transported. They don't have papers for it. So I don't think the young people really don't understand the significance and the importance of the land.
If you grew up in the country, as I did in Maikoni and Mahaika, you know the importance of land. But land is going to become a lot more important. There's climate change. A lot of the islands in the Caribbean are going to be run over, so to speak, in 50, 60 years. Guyana has a lot of land. We have to make sure that we have our right size of land in Guyana because it will become even more valuable. Oil is now here. Everybody's going to run in to get land. And the history of the last 23 years have shown that the Chinese come here and get 60,000 hectares of land for 12.5 cents US a hectare for 99 years. And we who died and live here and need land don't get. Patek, the Indian company, Vainatarna, the Indian company, huge swaths of land, commercial land, that they recognize have great value. So we in Guyana, especially African Guyanese, need to understand that land is going to become a lot more important and a lot more valuable, and that we've already died for it. We need to be repaired. We need to get our land.
So let's go back to His Excellency Brigadier Granger as we reinforce the idea that we have to look at things systematically and not individually.
There's a reason why we don't develop. Not because we're stupid, It's because the system which was imposed on us prevents us from ever competing on a level playing field with the people who created that system. They didn't create a system, they made the people. My brothers and sisters, I'm not an attorney at law, but it is my view that the first basis for claims for reparative justice rests on the fact that crimes against humanity are punishable under international law. They do not enjoy protection of any statute of limitation. Article 6 of the Charter of the International Military Tribunal, which was used 71 years ago when the Nazis were being tried in Germany at the end of the Second World War. 71 years ago, the Europeans implemented that law stating that enslavement was a crime against humanity. So they used that law to punish the Nazis who would enslave Jews in the slave camps. Well, the shoe's on the other foot.
Yes. If African Guyanese have land, what can they do with it?
There's so much that we can do. First of all, you are hearing the noise that jobs are not being created by this current government. And most people don't realize the reason why. We've put $32 billion in the last 22 months in Gaisuko, a loss-making opportunity, a loss-making business. If that money, if Gaisuko was making money, we could have used that $32 billion to create jobs for our youth, to diversify our villages, to improve our health and education. But to your specific question, if we have land, we can create our own jobs. We can create our own industries. We have oil now. In the next 5-10 years, we'll have cheaper energy to go into agro-processing, to do the things that we need to do. But you need the land to collateralize it so that you can get money from the bank to develop. So land is very central. Also, as much as no one wants to speak about it, we need to move from the coast. Climate change means that in 20, 30 years, our entire coasts, where our villages are at risk. So we need land to move there to create our own villages that are sustainable, because I don't want to see another 2009 where we lost 60% of GDP in a week and we have nowhere to go. So we need our land now, land reparations, so that we could start looking at generational wealth creation, so we could start looking at food security, so we could start moving from the coast, because ultimately we have to. And with the energy we've now found, we will be able to create sustainable energy industries, because food is short globally, water is short globally. And once we have our land, we'll have water, and with energy, we can create jobs. We can build our own communities again, like the village movement.
You know what is interesting is that when one listens to everything that has been said here, reparations seems to be synonymous with development.
It is.
Well, it is. It has to be. It has to be. But what is strange, listening to us talk about this, what is funny is that we Africans were the only people who owned land in Guyana. The plantations that when they brought us, that they had us on, they were leasing the lands from the crown. They were leasing the lands from the crown. So isn't it ironic that we who owned our land,
we bought the villages, so we owned
them. We owned the land.
First
and
of all.
And we are now having to ask for our ancestral lands that were systematically taken from us.
Paddleville, that's BV's land.
Systematically
Pleasant land.
taken from us.
Okay, We will entertain a few calls. We'll entertain a few calls. So to the listeners who are sharing this moment with us, you are free now to call. I think the numbers are going to be put up on the screen for yourselves to become a part of the discussion, even as we continue to discuss.
Let me just tease them a little. There's a famous song that we all love that says, "Not a blade of grass, not one caress." Now we as Africans are saying we have to retain and reclaim our blade of grass from the people who've been taking it from us.
Excellent. What attitudes do you think Africans have got to develop in this self-reparation move towards the acquisition and sustenance of land? This is at an individual level and not at a systemic level.
Well, we need first to recognize that land is wealth, and that, well, growing up in Maikoni, we grew everything in the backyard. We grew everything we needed to cook that we needed to. If you have land, you could become self-sustaining. We've lost that. So we have to recreate that attitude and understanding that we can grow all of our food. And land is also water. So if you have land, you have water, and you can get all sorts of other things done.
And how important is it for us to write a will so that that land is managed properly after we pass on?
Yeah, we're afraid of
Very
thinking
important.
of that, but it's part of our lost heritage. We knew that in Africa. It was generational wealth creation in our villages. But the British came in 1888, they split Africa into all these different colonial ownerships. And therefore, we lost our lands. But we need to recognize that we need land, wealth is generational, and land underpins that.
Yes, caller, you're on the line. Can you go ahead, please?
Yes, good evening. I'm looking at the program, it's very interesting. But the point I'm saying today, when you look around, we just become dependent set of people. We want something to be given to us. We think somebody owns us something. We don't see the value anymore that these young people, that land is a thing that we need to get back to. We need somebody to create employment for us rather than we are the persons who create employment for other persons. We don't see that way. How can we change that from within the home when the home of itself now has been fragmented due to the woman is no longer in a home? She has to go out there, and our male no longer knows its role. So it comes back to a long variety of things.
How do we correct it?
Well, it starts back.
Thank you very much, caller.
It starts back with reparations, the soft side of reparations, which is healing, which is going back to the family, which is educating ourselves about our self-esteem, our ability to do things. We have now come to believe that, as the lady was saying, that we're not capable of creating jobs. We lost that during enslavement. So it's about education, it's about the value system, it's about understanding that we have the DNA to do whatever we want to do, but a lot of it has to do with self-esteem, with self-respect, with stop being afraid of being black. You should be proud, as they said in the States.
Sister
You
Penda,
know, sorry.
Brother Elton.
I will not agree with Brother Eric to say we lost that during enslavement, because had we lost it during enslavement, we would not have bought those villages.
That's right.
We would not have gone out there and start to create communities and work for ourselves, because in that early period after emancipation, there was always this conflict. They wanted us to continue. In fact, they tried to restrict the amount of lands we could have bought so that we would not have been independent. They restricted, so we must be dependent on
No,
them.
I'm talking about today. We've lost the
No.
understanding of what land is valuable
because
to us.
after that time,
Education, yeah.
the education system did it to us.
Sister Penda, and then we'll wrap
I
up
think what the young
with-
lady is saying is very important, because you find that the attitude, what she's saying is correct. The attitude is that we must be given something. And that is not what our culture taught us. Our culture is one that taught us to go out there and, you know, do for
Sustain the
ourselves sustainability, to do the things that we have to. But as I said earlier, these things were deliberately beaten out of us.
And on that point, we must begin to close off this.
We have to go back to
particular
family
discussion.
and community, which is what the lady is saying.
Education.
And so we go
Support
out
each
with
other.
His Excellency Brigadier Granger once again speaking to us as we wrap up about how we got into this position and probably what we need to do to get out of it.
There's a reason why we're underdeveloped. It's not because we're stupid. It's because the system which was imposed on us prevents us from ever competing on a level playing field with the people who created that system. They didn't create a system, they made the people. My brothers and sisters, I'm not an attorney at law, but it is my view that the first basis for claims for reparative justice rests on the fact that crimes against humanity are punishable under international law. They do not enjoy protection of any statute of limitations. Article 6 of the Charter of the International Military Tribunal, which was used 71 years ago.
Thank you.
Thank you very much to the listening audience and the sister who came in with that question, and to our panel, Brother Phillips, Brother McCrae, and Sister Pendergoyan. Listen out for us for Reparations Now every third Saturday of each month. So we'll be back here the third Saturday of next month for a discussion on reparations here in Guyana. And thank you very much for being with us.